Welcome, everyone, to the 2021 Virtual Compassion in Action Healthcare Conference. I am Dr. Michael Goldberg, the Scholar in Residence at the Schwartz Center for Compassionate Healthcare. Thank you for joining us today for an interactive workshop, Resiliency Training, Tools for Cultivating Capacity. Please join me in welcoming our presenters. Reverend Krista Gregory is the founder of the Center for Resiliency at Dell Children's Medical Center in Austin. And joining Reverend Gregory is Dr. Phoebe Long-Franco. Dr. Long-Franco is a research scientist with the Center for Resiliency at Dell Children's Medical Center. Reverend Gregory and Dr. Long-Franco, we are delighted to have you with us today, and I'll turn this conference over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Goldberg. It is really great to be with you all. This is one of my favorite communities, the Schwartz Center community, and so it's really wonderful to be in this presence of all of you. For those of you that do know me and see me with a bald head, I'm not auditioning for G.I. Jane. I am going through chemo, so that's why I'm looking a little different than maybe you've seen me in the past, but my photo's down there where it says Tommy Real. She's using my intro, so that's what I normally look like with hair. But I'm doing really well, and I'm delighted to be here with this community and for us to bring this workshop to you at such a critical time for all of us. I recognize that we recognize that we're all tired and there's a lot going on. We're here in Texas, and the surge is happening for us as it is for the rest of you around the country. And we are just in this in solidarity with you. So I'll introduce myself for just a moment, and I'll let Phoebe introduce herself. As Michael said, I am the founder of the Center for Resiliency here in Austin, Texas. We started in 2016 and have continued to build this center for quite a while. I'll talk about it in just a moment in more detail, but just about me, I've been in healthcare over 25 years. I was at the bedside as a hospital chaplain until we started this center. I worked in the adult world and the peds world, and we stay very, very close to the bedside in the work that we do now, so that we always hear their voice as the first voice in anything that we teach or do. And hopefully you'll see that expressed in this today. I'm a daughter of a surgeon, so I grew up with that too, and his influence in my head is constant as I hear his voice of the way we teach and what would be appealing to someone from that perspective. And so that's also a lot of what guides us, not only the voices of the people around us, but for me, the voice from my own life that has allowed me to be who I am today. And Dr. Phoebe Long-Franco, I'll let you introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about you.
Yeah, hello everyone. So good to be with you today. My name is Phoebe. I have a background in educational psychology, so that's where I got my PhD at the University of Texas at Austin. I focused on studying self-compassion and anxiety, and in grad school is where I met Krista. So I've been working with healthcare professionals for about 5 years now. I've learned a ton through doing interviews, through doing quite a bit of quantitative research on some various interventions we've developed, and then have been working full-time with Krista for the last 2 years. And what a 2 years to enter the field of healthcare for a full-time capacity. So really, really enjoyed the work that we're getting to do with everyone, even though it's a really hard time. It feels really meaningful to be with you all, and looking forward to our discussion today.
Thanks, Phoebe. Well, just a couple more intros about us, and then we're going to jump right in. And we teach online a lot, and it's very interactive. So you may be eating lunch, but I hope you're going to stay engaged, because we want you to chat. We want you to unmute sometimes if you want to. We want to hear from you. We want to see you. I'm glad at least to see some faces on the screen. Thanks, Kathy. I can see you, and Joyce. That's awesome, because that's what makes this work. I mean, is we're in this together, and seeing each other can be really vital in these times like this. So the center, like I said, the center was started in 2016, and we've grown to have 10 different programs that we lead, and all kinds of stuff. You can check it out on our website. Phoebe can put the website in the chat if you want to look at it and check it out. Don't do it now, look at it later. Most of the stuff we do is free, and we're virtual. We went virtual in 2020 with the pandemic, just so because we knew there were other people that needed to be have access to other resources outside of their own facilities. And we've had people join us from across the world. So it's been very, very rich for us as well, and continues to enrich the programs that we continue to develop and build. And everything we do, that one of the reasons why Phoebe is here, we research everything, like to an extreme, like qualitatively, quantitatively, and you'll get that towards the end of this workshop today. Phoebe's going to show you some slides about the research that we've been doing on the work that we do related to this training so that you can see that. But we're very diligent about that. As healthcare providers, as healthcare professionals, we don't have a lot of time. We need to know that what we take and what we study is going to actually make a difference in our lives. So we were able to tell that to our people that come to our courses or come to our events. No, we've actually studied it. Stress goes down, anxiety goes down, self-compassion goes up, and we can tell them that. And that's reassuring in times like this when people have such a short amount of time to try to find some solace and some resource for them. So this course, some of you met us last year. We had worked on a course with Dr. Kristen Neff and Chris Germer at Harvard. Kristen Neff is at UT. We took their course on mindful self-compassion and changed it into self-compassion for healthcare communities. And we shared that with you all last year and have a lot of research. We've got a couple of published articles on that work. And it's great and we love it. But after the pandemic started, we were like, whoa, we need something very virtual. We need something not adapted from somebody else's curriculum, but that's right on the money with what we're all dealing with in healthcare. We needed to keep it very real, very authentic. So in June, July of 2020, Phoebe and I sat down and said, we're going to write our own curriculum. So that's what we did. And we took some things come from Kristen's work, and some of it's from other things. What you'll get today is other things that have been really meaningful to us as we've worked with providers and professionals through these last 18 months. And you're going to get a taste of that. So the course is called Resiliency Training Tools for Cultivating Capacity, because we don't have enough capacity. And what we're going to talk about, the theme that we use in our course is boats. So, and as we say, we're not all in the same boat, but we are all on the same ocean. And right now our ocean is pretty rocky and there's storms happening and there's hurricanes happening, but we're all in different boats, and each of our boats, some of them are better put together and some of them are kind of broken. And you're going to hear that as we start off with our first a part of the workshop today as we get into that. When I was preparing for this, Dr. Michael Goldberg, who introduced me, reminded me that Yom Kippur is tomorrow for our Jewish friends, and the theme scriptures for Yom Kippur come from Jonah. And Jonah was on a boat, so I think that's kind of serendipitous that we're talking the day before Yom Kippur about boats. But we're going to just jump right in and talk about that. But one last thing I want to tell you about the class. So this course that we teach now has the same format as our course we might have introduced you to last year. It's a 6-hour course. We talk about resiliency in healthcare, which we're going to kind of give you the basics of how we introduce that today. Then we talk about the advantage of awareness, because in healthcare, a lot of us haven't believed it's an advantage to be personally and physically and behaviorally aware of what's going on with us. We're good at compartmentalizing. So we have a whole hour about why it actually is to your advantage and to your patient's advantage to be connected to your humanity while it's happening. We talk about adjusting perspective in resilience. So we look at self-criticism, and kind of how do you adjust your body and your nervous system in the midst of what you're facing. That's our third session. Fourth session, you're going to get some today. We talk about values, how our values safeguard our resilience. Fascinating stuff that Phoebe's put together on that. We look at how to in our fifth session, we look at empathy and resilience and compassion and how to hang on to your own self so you don't get sucked into the vortex of someone else's emotions. Important thing. And in our last session, we really look at how to flip your brain out of negativity bias and what does that look like. And we look at some of Brian Sexton's work and some of that. You won't get all that stuff today. You're going to get a couple of things, but we're going to give you a taste of what that's about. But this is what we built out of the pandemic and out of what we've seen people have needed. And that's what we wanted to share with you. So that's sort of a summary of the course. We teach it a bunch of different ways. We teach it 6 hours all in one day for nurses who can't get off for an hour a week. We do 1 hour a week for some for 6 weeks. We do 1 hour a month for 6 months. We do it a bunch of different formats. We've studied the different formats, and that's what we do. But let's jump in. So I told you we're going to talk about boats. And if we were doing this live, I'd have you be drawing your own boat in front of you. So if you want to doodle in front of you, go right ahead, draw yourself a little boat. We're going to talk about boats. When we do this in the class we teach, we draw it on a whiteboard. But today I'm going to have Phoebe show you a boat for just a moment. And we're going to talk about this as our theme for today. So there you go. That's my great drawing. I'm not such a great artist, but have fun with that one. So on every boat, you see that there's, we've got a little person. When I do this with residents, I have them add whatever they want on the boat, the margaritas or whatever they want to add to their particular boat. But this is a boat. And this illustration actually came from a physician who was later, I read it in an article, and then later I heard it on a TED Talk. But she talked about this line on the boat. Does anybody know what that red line is on our boat? Put it in the chat if you think you know. Anybody know what that is? Oh. The water line. All right, Todd, thanks very much thanks for participating. You get a gold star for playing. Yes, but let me tell you a little bit about the story of this line. So on every boat, except maybe a kayak, because I don't really see it on kayaks much, but if you go to the cruise ships, if you go out, you're going to see these. There's a line across the bottom of the hull because a couple hundred years ago, there was the merchants would overload their ships, and send them across the ocean from Britain to the New World. And they had insurance on their boats. And so guess what happened? They would send them across, the boat might sink. Who cares? I got paid by the insurance company, so it doesn't matter. But who loses out? And you can chat that, or you can unmute and tell me, but who loses out if the boat sinks? Anybody? The sailors, right? Me, right? If your boat sinks, that's not good. It's the sailors and the people doing the work that lose out. So this guy named Sam Plimsoll was in the British Parliament, and he went to the British Parliament, he said, people, this isn't fair. These guys are making money off these boats, and women perhaps, I don't know, with their insurance, and this isn't fair, and these boats are sinking. We need to have some way to know if the boat is overloaded. So he got the Parliament to pass the ruling that said they had to draw a line on the boat, the water line. And even to this day, 200 years later, you have water lines on boats. So this physician that introduced this metaphor to us, we sort of took it and we play with it a lot. But wouldn't it be great, she said, if we all had like lines across our foreheads? Like I would have a water line. You could look at me and you could go, oh man, Krista's totally overloaded. Look, the water is way above the line. Okay, I'm going to steer clear of her today. We were teaching this last summer, and one of the physicians said, no, it doesn't need to be on the forehead, because if it's on my forehead, I've already drowned. So maybe it goes across the middle of my chest. And Phoebe, you can quit showing the boat now. We can just talk. But yeah, this idea of a plimsoll line, that wouldn't it be great if we could know by looking at each other in healthcare who was overloaded and who wasn't? And aren't we overloaded right now? Duh. I mean, we are. And so that becomes a part of the awareness. So maybe the cargo on our boat that's overloading us is the tasks we're expected to complete in one day, or the emotional work of giving patients difficult diagnoses, or the number of COVID patients, or the fact that we're short-staffed, or that we're witnessing patients' pain. So if you had a plimsoll line, how would you know, if we all had plimsoll lines, how would you know if your colleague was overloaded or at capacity? And notice I didn't use the word overwhelmed. We don't like that word because it makes us feel weak. I said the word overloaded. How do you know if your colleague is overloaded? Stick it in the chat if you want. How do you know? If you look at somebody, you're like, oh yeah, Their body language, yeah. You say more about that, Heidi, if you want to. Yeah. How do you know? They snap at things, yeah. They're not responding to questions. Yep. They're irritable. They avoid eye contact. They change their personality, their reactions, their vibes. They're reactive. Yeah. You ask them. Oh, good. Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, sometimes you can ask them because some of us don't know when we're overloaded. We're just acting out and we don't even realize. And it takes a colleague to go, okay, no, I'm fine. Why are you asking? So more reactive than responsive. One thing nobody put on, sometimes people get quieter. If you remember that, they get quiet. And so all these things, or they start missing days at work. So is there anything that has happened to you? Like I like to say, I have a poker face, like but I have a tell. If I'm playing poker, I could have a tell. I don't play poker, but I could have a tell. Like you could look at me. Phoebe can usually look at me as my colleague and go, yeah, Krista, the water's over the line, isn't it today? And I was like, yeah, it is. She can look at me. And that's helpful with my colleague to know that. Because if I can use that and know that about her or about me, or she knows that about me, it helps me to be able to work with her and realize this isn't about me. She's overloaded. So when we're overloaded, our thinking, our physical sensations, our emotions, our behavior can be affected. All of that. Our thinking can get affected. We can feel hopeless, edgy, negative. We're going to have trouble focusing and making decisions. Our physical sensations can be affected. We'd talk through this if we had more time, but tension, headaches, stomach ache, tired. Behaviorally, it changes. Some of you put that in the chat. You get not engaged. You want to lay on the couch. You don't want to get up, especially if you've reached capacity. And eating and drinking too much. And then our emotions, some of the things that you guys mentioned in the beginning. We get irritable, tearful, frustrated, apathetic. And sometimes for us in healthcare, we have trouble identifying any emotion at all because we just don't think that way and we don't talk that way. And so when we teach a class, we tell people, start with the physical. What's going on? Like do a moment and go, where am I with my body right now? Because if my body's telling me something, it might lead me as a clue down the path to figure out what might be underneath that. So so where is the water in relationship to your plimsoll line today? Where are you sitting? Are you sitting pretty comfortably in the water in your boat? Or are you kind of up here somewhere? In the resiliency training, we talk about ways to be more selective about what gets added to our boats, what we say yes to in our personal and professional lives. We talk about bailing our boat when we've taken on too much water or stress in a storm like COVID, or a long shift or a difficult patient, how to release stress from our bodies, how to process the human emotions that can overload us, and how to take control back so that we don't feel like we're going to get swamped. And we talk about sailing when the waters are rocky, because they just are. And right now, that is our reality. In healthcare, you can't stop sailing. It's not like you can go, I'm kind of done sailing. I don't like this anymore. I'm just going to go, I'm just leaving. And people have done that. I mean, I can say you can't do that, but you can't do that in the middle of the code. You can't do that in the middle of a hard day. And so really working with this idea of the plimsoll line and understanding with our awareness where we are and what we need has been a really critical factor that we've used in this. So Phoebe, I'm going to turn it over to you and you're going to take us through a practice we call the plimsoll line checklist. And go for it. Tell us how that goes and take us through.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Krista. Yeah, so we're going to do a practice to just kind of practice what Krista's been talking about related to awareness of our plimsoll lines. And so to do that, I'm going to invite you all to just find a comfortable seated position and just take a moment to kind of be intentional about where your feet are, maybe both feet on the ground, maybe both hands on your lap or somewhere else that feels kind of supportive to you. And for this practice, you might like to close your eyes because we'll be reflecting for a moment, but you certainly don't have to. And we'll start with just a couple of deep breaths. So just settling into the body by breathing in through the nose and exhaling completely. And then taking one more full deep breath in. And releasing the breath. So we're going to begin to notice where we are in this moment. And the first step is awareness. So looking down at our own plimsoll line. And to do that, we can just check in and ask ourselves, how is our body feeling right now? So are you noticing any sensations in the body in this moment? You can also ask yourself, what thoughts am I having? What am I thinking about right now? Am I feeling any particular emotions? And essentially with these questions, we're asking ourselves, am I feeling overloaded or underwater? Or am I feeling about right? Pretty good. And we know that for a lot of us, some of us have been through a pretty rough storm. You might have experienced a death yesterday. You might be short-staffed. You might simply be tired from a year of working through a pandemic. And other days your boat might be in pretty good shape. So we're just checking with this first step. We're checking on the state of our boat, how we're sitting in the water. And it's important to know what the state of our boat is before we go into rough waters so we know what we're working with. And the second step of the plimsoll line checklist is assessment, so taking inventory of our boat. And this question is, what do I need? So you might have noticed some discomfort during the first step of the practice. So is there something you need right now? And this need could be a basic necessity. It could be something like food or water, or even simply to use the restroom. Or you might need just another deep breath or a short break. Just asking yourself, what do I need? It could be your boat needs some repair, and that's okay. And then if there isn't anything in particular you need, you're welcome to just savor the experience of feeling pretty good right now. So the third step of the plimsoll line checklist involves adjusting our perspective. So looking up and out across the ocean, looking at the other boats around us, perhaps, and knowing that you're probably not the only one feeling like you do. Although we're not all on the same boat, we are all on the same ocean. And so if there's a storm brewing, others are probably in it too. And so saying to yourself, I am not alone. I am not alone. Or you can try something like, storms happen. Storms happen. And just because a storm is happening doesn't mean I did something wrong. Storms happen. And another part of adjusting your perspective is to consider what you might say to a good friend or a colleague who is on an overloaded boat near you. What might you say to that person? What would you do to support this person? And can you imagine saying those words to yourself right now or in a future storm? Maybe something like, I've got your back. And then just taking a moment to notice how you're feeling now. Letting go of the practice. When you're ready, you can open your eyes if they were closed. Yeah, and Krista, I think we'll skip breakouts for this practice since we're a little behind time. So what did you notice in that exercise? Was there anything particularly helpful or challenging? And feel free to, write in the chat or speak out loud. And Barbara's saying state of calm and peace. Kathy is similarly saying very calming exercise. Becky notes that it made her focus on how my body was feeling, a little tense in the shoulders. Yeah, so that was that first step of awareness, reassured I'm not alone. I see James has his hand up. Feel free to unmute and comment.
I just came from doing patient care upstairs. So it was like your guiding us was kind of like the opposite of everywhere I just was with different families that I serve. And so it sort of kind of like reset me to sort of set me back to zero, and sort of kind of washed off grief and stuff from people that they're dealing with.
Wow. Yeah, that's big. Thank you for sharing, James.
Thanks.
Yeah. I think sometimes just taking that moment to kind of center ourselves and reflect, even that was not more than 5 minutes, right? But to notice that kind of dramatic shift is really cool. Heidi says she's wondering where my boat is going, letting go and trusting. We're actually going to talk about that in a little bit with values. That might be related to your comment, Heidi. And so know that this practice we don't necessarily ask people to sit down and kind of formally reflect for about 5 minutes. Of course, if you have that amount of time, it's wonderful. But picking out the piece that really resonated with you. So there's kind of 3 aspects of the practice: becoming aware of your experience, kind of noticing what's happening in the body, what's happening in the mind, asking that really simple question, what do I need? That's the assessment aspect of the practice. And that's a really great question to ask yourself pretty regularly throughout your day. We have a lot of people in healthcare who go throughout their whole shift and don't use the restroom. And then when you're leaving, it's like, oh my God, I have to go really, really bad. So kind of taking a moment to ask that really simple, like basic necessity question. And then finally, that adjusting perspective, remembering you're not alone, storms happen, and considering what you might say to a good friend. So I'll just invite you all to think about an aspect of the practice you would use in your day-to-day life. And Krista, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, we teach this at our hospital, and so I just the other day, it was a couple months ago, was teaching it to pediatric medical residents, and I ran into one of them in the cafeteria, and she was like, "Oh yeah, Krista, my plimsoll, yeah, I'm underwater." I mean, and she was using the metaphor, and then she said, we're doing it when we're getting ready to do handoff at the end of the day. We're all standing there, and we like, all right, where's your plimsoll? And then they use that to decide who gets to go first. So who gets to go home first. So it's an assessment. And I have another colleague that tells me when he gets home, it's another physician, he gets home, he and his wife use the metaphor. All right, where are we today as a couple? Do we need to get takeout, or is this an okay night? So it's that quick assessment. It's playful because it's a boat, it's a plimsoll, you're remembering a weird name. I mean, that's why we use it. We play around with it. But the idea really is, where am I? What do I need? And other people are in this storm with me. Storms happen can be said a lot of different ways. But that's the idea, is that it's not my fault that this may be hard, because that's what we're finding right now in the pandemic. There's this point of self-criticism that gets kind of weird, and you think, why am I broken? Why am I overwhelmed? Well, because everybody is. So this practice sort of takes you through that, and you can use it quick. You can use it in the moment. People use it with each other. It's a fast one. It's a fun one to play with, and we play with it online. So nurses use it with, if they notice a colleague who's getting really snippy, they'll go, okay, this isn't about me. That physician right now today is up here. Okay, good. It's the plimsoll thing. And it's sort of a disconnect in a way that doesn't make it personal about that person either. It just says, oh, they're overloaded. Got it. We're going to be adjusting around them because of that. That's okay. We don't forgive. We don't need to excuse abusive behavior, but this helps us in this time where we're all really, really in this place of irritability. So, all right, Phoebe, I think you're next.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, someone just asked about where they can find this practice. We're going to provide some handouts at the very end via the chat. So they're really great. We turn them into kind of comic cartoons for you. Yeah, so you just did a practice that we shared our very first session of resiliency training. And later in session 4, we do a practice, which we're about to share with you, that gets at kind of the core of why some people experience burnout. In between those sessions, we're giving people a lot of kind of grounding and awareness exercises to kind of build up to this a little bit heavier practice, which we'll go through, and we'll provide you some tools throughout to kind of stay grounded if you need them. So essentially with the plimsoll line practice, we were practicing becoming more aware of our bodies and our emotions, and being aware of what's happening on a moment-to-moment basis is really helpful, because we can then kind of adjust, give ourselves something that we need in the moment to calm anxiety, calm stress, adjusting our nervous system. But we also think it's really important for long-term change to start to think about kind of what's behind our really strong feelings and emotions. Are there things we can change about our daily life that maybe would lead us to feel less stressed and feel less anxious overall? And so that's what we're going to be talking about now with an exploration of values. And we're really excited to share this practice because this practice came out of a session that I was at last year, the Compassion in Action conference. Susan David shared, she wrote a really great book called Emotional Agility. And she says, we don't feel strong emotions about things we don't care about. So essentially, our discomfort, like sadness or like anger, can clue us into what we value, because the emotion signals there may be a disconnect between what we're doing and who we are at our core. So it's just really important to pay attention to ourselves when we're feeling difficulty rather than ignore our discomfort. So some examples of this are if we're feeling annoyed doing what we see as menial tasks, this could show that we really value challenging ourselves. Or if we're feeling anxious because we feel like we just don't have enough time to finish everything we have to do in one day, it can show we really value integrity or keeping our promises. It's also true that our positive emotions can signal what we value. So for those of us who feel really fulfilled and grateful after working with someone who is actually dying, our positive emotions can be showing that we really value connection and being present with others during difficult circumstances. So essentially, knowing what we value, which is what we're going to explore with Krista in a second, can help us move closer towards what we need. So in this next practice, we'll offer ways to turn the information we're receiving from our difficult emotions. Our emotions are giving us information that will help us maybe make different choices about our actions and kind of exert more control over our lives and our experience. This is, I think, especially an important practice because we often use the word burnout as kind of a catch-all term for a range of difficult feelings we experience on our jobs. So this practice can kind of be a useful roadmap into really some of the reasons we're feeling burnout, not just recognizing that we are burned out, but like what's behind those feelings of exhaustion and depletion. And again, this tool was born out of Susan David's presentation and also a lot of the work that Krista and I have been doing with healthcare professionals directly. It's one example of how we like to turn what researchers know about emotions into really practical tools that healthcare professionals that we can all use in our everyday lives to regulate our emotions and have better experiences at work.
All right, you ready for me? All right. This is a practice called signposts for our values. And like we said, we're going to give you comics later that summarize everything we're saying. So we want you to just experience today, really. We promise it's going to be fine. You'll need something to write with for this exercise. So if you've got your phone with you, you can type in your phone, or if you want to get on a screen or just scribble on a piece of paper. But I'm going to ask you a question. We're going to guide you in. It's kind of a roadmap. I want you to think about a day, the last good day you had. I hope it's not too far back, but here's your question. Tell me about in your mind, or think about the last good day you had. It could have been at home or it could have been at work. What happened on that day? What feelings or emotions did you have on that day? Maybe you had joy or fulfillment. maybe satisfaction or calm. And I want you to write down, you don't put it in the chat, like this is your thing. Write down, like describe in some detail what happened on that good day. Why was it a good day? What did you feel on that day? So she said, we don't have strong feelings about things that don't matter to us. So write jot a couple notes. Oh yeah, that was my good day because I got to be with my grandkids. Or that was my good day because we figured out a great diagnosis. But write down why, describe a good day. Just going to give you a couple of minutes, or not even that long, just to write down some notes for yourself. Hopefully you don't have to think too far back for a good day. You're thinking about how'd you feel on that day? Why was it a good day? Let's figure out what our good days show us about what we value. If you thought about something that was happening at work, you might have described a day when you did something really well, like such as figuring out, like I said, maybe you figured out a complicated diagnosis and you're like, yes, I rocked it. That was an awesome day. I went home and went, I love my job. That's kind of good day we're talking about. Or maybe it was a day when your team functioned really well together. Or if you were thinking about your personal life when you thought about a good day, perhaps it was a day that you got to spend quality time with your family, or you were able to see things through travel. Maybe that was your good day. So what does that experience tell you about what is important to you? Is it that you value relationships or connection, or you value teamwork? You like figuring out complicated things? Perhaps you value your family, adventure. So let's look at a list of possible values from which to choose. And Phoebe's going to show her screen. It's not ours. It's a Brene Brown one, and we'll send you the link later. But look at this list and just think, what value connects with what you were just thinking and feeling and what you liked about that good day? Was it friendship? Yeah, that's why I liked that. Was why that was a good day. Was it peace? Was it power? Was it vulnerability? Many healthcare professionals share common values, and we're all like, oh, we believe in compassion and we believe in justice. But no, we're all different. We really are all different. And when you can look at what it is that's your thing that really gets at you, it can be extremely helpful when you see later why you're burning out. And if you're having trouble looking at this list and identifying one or two of the values on there that correspond, you can write in the chat to Phoebe and me personally or individually, and we'll help you. Because this can be hard. This can be hard for some people. We found that. But see if one of these words fits with, that is why I liked that day. I liked that day because we were doing good teamwork. I liked that day because we were successful. I liked that day because it felt really authentic. I liked that day because I got to be super creative. So you don't have to default to the ones that everybody thinks we're all supposed to have. Okay. All right, we're moving kind of quick, so I'm going to move you to the next one. Now I want you to think of a day when it wasn't so great. When's your last bad day? Maybe it was earlier today, I don't know. But can you describe in some detail what had happened? I want you to think about a day when it wasn't so great at work or at home. And write down some notes in front of yourself, like, why was it a bad day? Why was it? What happened? Why did I get home and go, oh, I hate my job? Or, oh, I don't like my life right now. What made it a bad day? Write some things down in that. Consider how you were feeling on that bad day. Were you angry? Were you sad? Were you frustrated or anxious? Were you overloaded or overwhelmed? Why was it a bad day? And then, of course, same thing. What does that difficult experience tell you about what's important to you and what you value? So in other words, what values are your uncomfortable feelings showing you? Like if you were uncomfortable because you didn't get to spend time with your family, you know, okay, I really, really value that. We're going to tell a story about that in a minute for one of our colleagues that really influenced this practice for us. Or if there was something that happened at work and it was just totally unjust, and you were really struggling with that, you know then that for you, justice is a big deal. And justice is a big deal for a lot of people, but it's a big deal for you if that's the one that shows up. And that's why that day was hard. And for this last question, is there an action you could take to address this misalignment with your values? For example, if you value integrity and trust and keeping your promises, could you potentially rework your schedule for the following day to set some more realistic expectations for patient care? Maybe you can't, but you could. Maybe you could try. If you value family, could you find time to spend time with them throughout the week? One of our residents, his wife drives up at lunch and he gets in the car with the kids for 5 minutes. That's what he does. If you value compassion, could you remind yourself to pay closer attention in your visits to with your patients and colleagues so that you can truly hear them, because you know that really does it for you? If you value teamwork, could you ensure that taking time to talk to their team members or suggesting a care conference so everybody gets on the same page with the patient or the entire team, recognizing the team contributions, could you make that switch? Thinking about what you can do, is there an action that kind of align yourself with your values? And honestly, if there is nothing, because we get that right now in pandemic, you're like, I can't unload my boat. I can't change my schedule. If that's the case, if you can't exert some more control of your situation, then how can you change your response to that situation? And knowing, oh, that's why I'm struggling so much. I'm struggling so much because it's compromising who I am. Okay. Because sometimes without naming that, it leaves us just kind of feeling bleh, burned out, but without any intentionality about what's behind that. Could you support yourself in some small way? You might consider what you would say to a friend, like we said before, who's going through the same thing. You could remind yourself that integrity is doing the best I can with what I've got. Sometimes that self-critical voice undermines our recognition that we really are living in alignment with our values. And so that becomes part of it. Okay. That's the practice. We did it kind of fast, but let's talk for a moment about that. Looking at time, I want to have time for Phoebe to talk about research in a little bit too, but how'd you feel to reflect on your values and how they underline, connecting those to the emotions? How'd that work for you? Finding that roadmap in. Any comments or thoughts? What values did you notice? Yeah, Stephanie. Yeah.
Good to see you, Krista. I think that it helped me to name things I know about myself, but that I am not always intentional about foregrounding. Right? So there's no massive epiphany except to say oh, I see that I had a good day when I focused on balance and order and family and healthy choices, whatever. And a bad day when I felt like I wasn't contributing and I was out of control and I didn't feel connected, right? And so I can try more intentionally, I think, to lead with the things that make me feel better.
Yeah, I like that. And it's helpful. I think it's helpful too, because when you know you've had a bad day, you don't have to go, yeah, and I totally messed up and I'm horrible. But you can go, oh, well, of course that's why I had a bad day. Well, duh. Okay, that makes sense that this would have been rough because I didn't get to do those things, as opposed to I'm just a broken person. And I think that it just kind of allows you to kind of give you, we try to give people control a lot in this training that we teach, because right now we feel so out of control. And knowledge and awareness can give you control. Oh, well, no wonder this is happening. I tell a story about one of the backgrounds to this practice. Several years ago, I was teaching a retreat and we were talking about values, and I had a group of anesthesiologists on the retreat. And we had just started a new cardiac program at our hospital, hyper stressful, big deal. And this anesthesiologist was coming up for meetings at 6 in the morning and staying till 10 at night. And he was like, Krista, I'm miserable. I hate this. And I'm like, well, what's going on? Talk to me. And he's like, because this isn't what I signed up for. He said, I chose to be an anesthesiologist so I could control my schedule, so I could like go to band practice sometimes with my kids. And now like, this is super exciting. We're doing this really cool CV program, but I'm not with my kids and I hate my life and I just want to quit. I'm like, okay, let's go there. Okay, come here. Because what's going on? What's one of your values, Billy? It's your 5 kids. It always has been. There's reasons for that. And I said, I can't give you resiliency practices enough that are going to make this better because you've compromised a core value in who you are. He was like, oh, so I'm not just burned out. It's like, no, this isn't just like burnout. This is like, you're compromising something that really matters to you. You know, about 2 months later, he moved out of that role, changed his role, and now he's still an anesthesiologist at our hospital, still doing great. He's actually head of the department now, but he's not doing it in the same way he was because now he's aligned it with his value of family and he's happy. And he's still a great doc and he still does what he does, but he couldn't kind of get at that. All he could get at was, I am tired and I don't see my kids and I'm upset. And he needed a roadmap to sort of find out what that was about. And so that's why we teach this in this session. And it's been really powerful for people. Some people get really depressed about it because they kind of feel like I've lost something, but you can find your way back anytime. All right, Phoebe, tell us a little bit about the research. Anything else you want to add to the debrief about that too? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just noticed Todd made a comment. He said, honestly, it frustrated me a bit, pointed out the disconnect between some of the things that I actually value as opposed to how I actually spend my time most days, somewhat similar to the story you're telling me now. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Todd. Because that's back to awareness. You're like, oh, then if I have awareness, I have choice. And sometimes the choice is hard and sometimes it's not. And I think we have a line in this that says, we may recognize that a personal value conflicts with what we valued in our professional environment, and pursuing a personal value can be an act of bravery. So, yeah, and there's some really cool studies about this. There was a study with physicians in Chicago that hired medical scribes to do their charting so they could actually look at their patients while they were talking to them. And it was super cool to see. They had incredible rises in personal and professional satisfaction because they didn't have to chart and not look at their patients. I mean, so many cool research around how we can adjust things so that we get to do what we want to do. And it's not easy in the system we work in. We're really authentic about that. But sometimes you can make little adjustments that can remind you of that. Or as I said, on the day that it doesn't go well, at least oh, now I know why it didn't go well because I wasn't linking in with who I really am. So very cool. All right, go for it, Phoebe.
Yeah, great. So I'm going to share some of the research that we've done on the training. Sharing my screen here. So like Krista mentioned, we developed this curriculum back last summer, about a year ago, and then we've been collecting data on the experience of our participants since then. And so I'm going to share data that we've collected from 2 groups of people. One was a group of interdisciplinary healthcare professionals who took the course between August and November. I'm sharing a slide with you of some of the measures we used that we would want to see increase in our participants. So things like self-compassion, mindfulness, resilience, and professional fulfillment. For those of you who are researchers, I'm happy to talk with you more about the scales, but since we have a little bit of time here, I'm just going to share briefly what we saw. So again, this is preliminary data from our pilot group, and we did see significant increases in self-compassion, in mindfulness, and resilience from pre to post. These changes were maintained at 3-month follow-up. So we tested people 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after, and 3 months following the training. And self-compassion, people saw a 17% increase. Mindfulness, they increased by 8%. Resilience, they increased by 19%. And we did see a trend towards professional fulfillment increasing as well, although that change was not statistically significant.
And remember, this is all in the pandemic. So when this is all
Yeah.
happening, you were testing.
Yeah. So, and then we also tested them on some measures we would like to see decrease in our participants. So things like work exhaustion, interpersonal disengagement, perceived stress, and difficulties with regulating emotions. You can see here that there were significant decreases in work exhaustion from pre to post, significant decreases in perceived stress and difficulties with emotion regulation. We didn't see significance in the interpersonal disengagement, but there were some trends in it decreasing as well. And then we saw kind of similar results for pediatric residents. We offered the program to them for an hour a month for 6 months. So we actually tested them right before the training, midway through the training at about 3 months, and then again 2 weeks after to kind of see what their kind of self-regulation and emotional awareness skills were doing throughout that time. We did see significant increases in self-compassion, in mindfulness, in professional fulfillment, and in quality of care. There was a trend of resilience increasing as well, but that increase wasn't statistically significant. And then we did see decreases in work exhaustion from pre-test to mid-test, although that did go up towards the end of the year. We saw decreases in perceived stress and difficulties with emotion regulation as well. So we do have some preliminary evidence that this program is helpful for the people who come to our courses, especially in the middle of a pandemic. To support these findings, we have a little bit of open-ended feedback from various physicians, pediatric residents, nurses who attended our training, and I'll just share some of their comments with you. I think this training will help me immensely, said one of our pediatric residents. She said, I feel so much more in tune with my emotions and how to take care of myself and my needs while still caring for my patients. I think that that comment is really powerful and shows that kind of connection between how important it is to become aware of ourselves and know what we need so that we can care as best we can for those we serve. Someone also said, who's a private practice physician, I've gained a lot of insight to myself. Because of what you taught, I actually believe I'm worth the time, energy, and effort to treat myself with respect, kindness, and forgiveness. And another comment from a nurse about being kind to herself, doing the best she can on a daily basis with some very difficult circumstances. So this is just a little bit of the data that we've collected. I'll stop sharing. We're still analyzing data from a few other groups of people who've taken the course this year, and we're hoping to and actually we have a study in the works comparing, we have a comparison group of people who've signed up for a later course. We're comparing their score changes over time to a group of people who are taking the course right now. So that should help us kind of weed out the effects of kind of current events on these psychological measures that we've looked at. I see Stephanie has a question, and Krista, did you want to say something?
Yeah, go ahead and answer Stephanie's question because I was going to comment to it. Go for it.
Yeah, for the residents, do you think the cumulative impact of the training impacted the post-test, meaning more tools for various situations might be beneficial? Were you going to say something about that, Krista? Because I need a moment.
We have like 18 different tools that we teach them in the
Yeah.
6 weeks, so I don't think any more tools will work. What we found interesting about the residents, honestly, was we never had tested people in the middle of the training because it was a 6 months. And usually in January, the residents are at their worst. They're like hating their lives, especially the second years. And they weren't, which was so shocking to us, which told us that they were, I was like, what's this about, people? And they're like, we got stuff to do. Like, you told us what to do when things are hard. And so, because our training is very practical, use in the moment kind of stuff. We don't talk about mindfulness like now let's go meditate for 30 minutes in the bathroom while you have a hard day. We talk about in the moment, you're in a difficult situation with a family, do this. You're having to present in front of them, do this. Like we teach them stuff to do in the moment very quickly. Like the plimsoll line is like, all right, where am I? What do I need? I need a bathroom. Okay, go, boom. I mean, it's very fast. And so they started using it and really were, benefiting by it. I think by the end of the year, some of the uptick was stress about fellowship and what's going to happen next and all that kind of stuff. So yes, and we are going to be publishing all of this, absolutely. And we have several other papers in the works to publish as well. So Phoebe's put the handouts in the chat that you can play with from what we just taught you. We have a training course you can sign up for. We can put that in the chat too. If you want to look at our website, you can sign up and take the class yourself because we teach it virtually. We have people from all across the world that take it. And the more we learn from the people who take the course, it all gets integrated into what we've developed. So it changes and iterates as we learn from each other about what works and what doesn't work. So we have a few more minutes of questions, thoughts. I'll check out the chat, but feel free to unmute, ask anything. We'll look at what we're seeing there. Let's see. Yeah. Olga says, maintaining healthy boundaries, personal boundaries at work makes a good day. Not maintaining the boundaries makes it a bad one for me. We have this great practice on embodied boundaries that we do that people love, that it's a lot of fun. That's one of the ones, it's one of my favorites. It's a very physical one that gets into feeling what it feels like to put up boundaries and say no. Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts you want to ask about what we're doing? This is just one of the aspects of our program that we do here at Dell Children's, but everything we do is available to anybody in the country. You can come on and see it. We also do a monthly meeting we call Community of Practice, where people can just come in for an hour on Zoom and we get really current about what's happening. If it's a Delta variant, if it's the attack on the Capitol, if it's whatever we're dealing with as a country, as a healthcare group. And then we talk about it a little bit, and then we give you a practice that helps you cope with that in the moment. So very real-time, practical. Yeah, community practice, it's on our website. You can check it out. And I'll put the website or Phoebe, if you'll put the website in the chat, check it out. You can come and yeah, that kind of thing. We are going to do teacher training on teaching this class as well. We'll start that in January, and we're working on that curriculum right now. So we'll train people how to teach it because we find that it's that valuable. To get it out there and get it in a very practical sense. I think that's what people are wanting right now. They want, give me a tool, especially nurses. I'm a task person. Give me a tool, give me a task. I can do that in that moment. And that then translates into things that can be more shared in an outside of work kind of setting. Other questions, thoughts? I'll stop talking. I know Michael needs to say something. Dr. Goldberg needs to say something at the end as well.
So if I can ask you a question before we get to the end, how does the organization at large view this activity? And you're part of a large healthcare system now. Are they saying this is the type of practice that we're going to use as a value in our entire organization? It's like a safety program. Or
I think there's still mixed conversations going on. I think everybody thinks they know the right thing to do, and but we're the only ones researching it, and so they're starting to pay attention to that because they're starting to, well, they've got data behind this. So what's happening? We're part of Ascension. What's happening is people all across Ascension nationally are coming to our stuff. Like we have physicians in Michigan and Kansas and Wisconsin and Illinois and Indiana and Oklahoma and Florida and nurses. I mean, they're all flooding in, and now the word is sort of spreading because they found something that actually is working for them, as opposed to let's all just get together and talk about it, because that has value too, or let's all have tea time together. I mean, those things have incredible value. Our program is just a different direction. We really are focusing on, can I give you something to do in this moment to ground yourself? Because right now you have to go in that room with that COVID patient and you need something right now. So we just have a different approach. And so people are starting to pay attention to that. Has it fully, we're right now, we just actually wrote a big grant that we're hoping to get. And I sent it to the head of our region And he said, if you don't get funded, I might fund you because this is really important. So we're starting to see that even more. But part of that's been grassroots and part of that's been top down. It's gone both ways. But our leadership is very, very supportive and sends people to where we, and some of them require their people to take the class and things like that. So,
well, thank you both very much. If I have one suggestion before we close is to change the title to "What I Need Now," and I'm sure many who listen feel the same way. So we appreciate Krista, your and Phoebe's time. And thank you to our audience. Please keep an eye out for the recap of this week's session, as well as the link that will enable you to get CME and CEU credits. We would also like to thank our national business members for their year-round support of the Schwartz Center. This conference would not be possible without them. And we look forward to having you all back again tomorrow for the Healers Healing Healers strategy to building workplace resilience. This is a panel discussion with a team from New York City Health and Hospitals at Kings County Hospital. So thank you all. We hope you enjoy and have a safe day, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye-bye now.